To order, and in terms of our assignment today, exempt properties, omitted properties, stipulation, no change list, appeals, and any other items as required by statute. Also, Holly has proposed a schedule for us. Our meeting today, the next meeting is April 20th, 8 a.m. to noon. The next one is April 21, 8 o'clock until questions, whenever. And Friday the 22nd, reserved in case we need it for appeal hearings. So with that in mind, we'll turn this over to Director of Equalization, Shannon Rittberger.
Okay, as far as your schedule, we will probably not go Friday, right?
I'll know more after today, but yeah.
We doubt we'll go Friday. We will probably fill the 21st. We still have appraisers that are working with property owners. Our commercial appraisers are talking to tax reps out of state who won't tell them for certain whether they want to show up or not. At some point, we're just going to say, fine, we're going to assume you're not. And then we have residential appraisers who are still meeting with property owners. We have appraisers that are out of the office today. So we don't know exactly how many appointments we're going to have. We'll probably fill the 21st and not have to do Friday. So today, all we're doing is exempt properties, and then we have one property that was omitted from the tax roll. It's a trailer house we didn't know was there. We found it probably because they transferred title or maybe moved it in or something. Anyways, we found something, so we need to add that one. The exempt properties you can act on today. We present, well, first of all, the law says that the County Board of Equalization has to meet from this time to this time. And Holly interprets that as that we have to meet today. So it's because of Holly that we're here today, that's it. We present the exempt properties today because if you deny one, the law says that they have so many days to come back and make an argument. So we can't do the exempt properties on the last day that you meet. So we present them here. If you don't plan on denying an exemption, then you can approve them all now. In the past, we have presented them, talked about them, and you've acted on them at a later date. I don't see any problem with acting on them now unless you deny one, and but then we'll bring that person back. The exempt properties make an application to my office for exemption. Somebody in my office goes out and looks at the property and makes a determination of whether they qualify for an exemption or not. And then it comes to you with a recommendation. All of these come with a recommendation of granting the exemption. We don't have any where I've recommended denial. And we present these to you in 3 different lists. One of them is all of the properties that are 100% exempt from property taxes. The next one is all of the properties that are only partially exempt because part of the property is used for some non-exempt purpose. The third is all of the properties that have made an application for exemption that are brand new, first time this year. Just so you can see what's new. All of the others have been approved for exemption in years past. The new ones are new. Most of the new ones, though, aren't necessarily new properties. Some of them might be a brand new building, but a lot of them are one church sold and another church bought that property. Well, that new church is applying for exemption on that property for the first time. But it's not, it was always a church. It has been exempt in the past, and the church itself was probably exempt on another property. So there's that kind of stuff, but they had to make a new application. I don't see any in here that are unusual or questionable. You can certainly argue the qualification for an exemption. But in years past, I have made a recommendation to deny, and I don't have any for this year.
We ask you
If,
questions now.
If a commissioner chooses to question a particular property, what approach would you like?
We
be
will pull
taken?
it up, we'll bring a picture of it up and look at it. If necessary, I can run up to my office and get the application,
Yellow.
some notes or something if I have on it. Most of them we should be able to look at and see what it is, just by a picture.
Do you want it brought up by the map number, or how would you prefer that?
Just the name.
It doesn't matter, the short number's the easiest. Pull it up on Orion. Oh, you have the applications, okay. Yeah, if you got a question on one, we'll pull it up, bring a picture, see what it looks like.
What are we doing first, Shannon, or Chair, are we doing the mobile home thing first?
Whatever works best for you
Don't
folks.
matter, we got very little to do today, so whatever you want to do. We have these exemptions, and then we have that mobile home, we just need to add that to the tax roll. And then what happens with that is it was omitted from the tax roll when we mailed assessment notices. So we're going to add it to the tax roll, and then we mail him a letter and it says, this will be added at this much value. If you have a problem with it, you can come back in and argue after so many days. But we've already talked to the property owner, they're not going to do that. We will still mail out the letter, but in the process of discovery of finding that, we've already explained all that to the property owner. It just needs to be formally added to the tax roll.
Mr. Chair, we're talking about the mobile home first, it looks like. Since he just told us all the information, if that's okay. Everybody okay with that?
I'll make a motion to add 8011791 in the amount of $44,000 to the tax roll.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
Was that 44,100?
If that's what it, yeah, whatever.
Yep,
44,100, I'm sorry.
yes, sir.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
We do also reserve this day in case we fill up those other days to put some appeals on today, and we haven't, so we don't have any property owners coming in to appeal. Maybe in another year, if it looks like we're filling up the days that have already been reserved, we'll put some here, but we haven't needed today.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions on the partial exempts. Shannon, how about the Basin Electric Power Cooperative on the partial exempt 0054474?
Okay.
Says charitable, and then it says Basin Electric Power Cooperative. It's on your partial exempt.
The new ones. There. On the new, is it a new one?
It's a partial.
Okay, so it'd probably be in there.
Let me read that number again, Deb.
You want to pull it up on Orion? It's Basin Electric.
Want the number, Miss Deb?
Yes.
0054474. Is charitable on it?
And I wonder why it says charitable.
Or maybe this just all means, maybe it means the whole thing is charitable below it, but
I know what that is. Where is she seeing charitable then?
right above it on this paper.
It is a substation, an electrical substation. Basin Electric owns it, but there is something about it that some other electric company is using part of it for something.
Why does it make it exempt?
Because it's a utility. It's not really exempt from taxes. Basin Electric pays gross receipts through the state assessed utilities. So like electric company, water companies, railroad, it's state assessed, To make it state assessed, we make it exempt here. It's not really exempt, they pay taxes based on gross receipts. But they have some share arrangement with some other company that is not a utility that pays taxes on gross receipts. So we have to have it partial taxable here.
Okay, and number 2 is the 0039126, the yellow bike program.
Yellow Bike. That is like a 10-acre lot out on Radar Hill Road. I'm not exactly sure of the acreage, but it's a home site like that. He has a trailer house and a shop on it. His trailer house is a tax bill separate. The shop and part of the land are exempt. He collects bicycles, repairs them in the shop, and gives them away. Now, when I first started here, there's a picture of his house, but that is taxable. That just happens to be the house that sits on it. When I first started here, I heard about this and I wondered, yeah, okay. I went out to look at it. His property is actually owned by Yellow Bike Incorporated or something like that.
Okay.
He is not one of the directors. I wonder if his wife might have been one, but there's like 4 or 5 directors of it. The corporation owns the site. He collects bicycles from wherever he can get them. He fixes them in the shop and he gives them away. While I was there, the VFW from Piedmont showed up and he loaded a pickup upload of bikes. They're free. They go give them away in some raffle or something. He's been in the Rapid City Journal every year for giving away bikes at various organizations. That's what he does in his retirement. I went in the shop. I told office staff here that if I found his car parked in the garage, we're going to make the shop taxable. There was nothing but bike parts in that shop. He is doing something legitimate. He meets the legal requirements of a charity.
All righty then. I have heard about it then. I've heard about the giveaway on the bikes. So if people do it a charitable organization thing, then that's partial.
Well, this is partially exempt because he's got, I think, something like 10 acres. But I don't think it requires 10 acres to do the Yellow Bike program. So part of the property is taxable and part of it is exempt.
So how many out of the 10 acres is exempt?
Well, it's just a percentage of the property.
What'd that be?
We got 55% of the land exempt, and then the shop is exempt.
Okay.
And I'll read the statute for a charity if you'd like.
Sure.
And was that a charitable one, Deb, or is that benevolent?
Under charitable.
Charitable. Property owned by a public charity and used for charitable purposes is exempt. A public charity is any organization or society which devotes its resources to the relief of the poor, distressed, or underprivileged. Public charity must receive a majority of its revenue from donations, public funds, membership fees, or program fees generated solely to cover operating expenses. It must lessen a governmental burden by providing its services to people who would otherwise use government services. It must offer its services to people regardless of their ability to pay for such services. It must be nonprofit and recognized as an exempt organization under 501c3 of the United States Internal Revenue Code. And it may not have any of its assets available to private interest.
Thank you.
Each one of these exempt statutes says that they have to be a nonprofit organization. We get people organizations that say they're a nonprofit organization. Not every nonprofit is exempt from property taxes, but every property that's exempt from property taxes has to be a nonprofit.
So how about the roping club? Where do they help people rope animals? 0040140.
Is it New Underwood?
Arena
Roping
track.
Club.
Okay.
I can tell you the whole story.
We have a history with them. It is a private roping club and used to be fully exempt. And I argued with them for several years, went to Pier, and nobody showed up at the hearing in Pier. It is a private club, but they use the roping arena and the grounds for the New Underwood rodeo. They have a rodeo, and then they have some other event, a play day or something else that the New Underwood community uses. So it is partially exempt based on the activity that's going on there. After several years, they provided me all of the different activities that went on there, and I said, okay, these activities are open to the public, anybody can come, anybody can use it, and these activities are your private roping events.
Right.
And that's where I come up with a percentage.
So what's the percentage?
The barn on that property is still owned by the county.
No, the city, I think.
City took it over. But the county built it years ago.
So it's
I thought the city built it and owned it.
No.
There was
No.
some, there was some agreement in the minutes, though, that actually said the city owned it. And the city was parking a road grader in it, I think, for a while.
But when Forrest Batchelder was on the county commission, he lived there, New Underwood. The state high school rodeo was being held there.
Had it there for many
And-
years.
He convinced the county to build the barn.
Yeah? Well, there's something in the minutes of the city that said the barn is the city's and will always be theirs.
They
So
probably-
actually, that's an exception here. That one building is exempt because it's owned by the city, even though it's on the roping grounds.
Okay. I'm sure they turned it over to the city because nobody from the county would be paying attention to maintaining it or governing the use of it. So,
Probably.
Thank you, Ms. Deb. Thanks, Shannon.
We do have one other roping arena that's, but it's 100% exempt. It's the wall roping club or roping arena. I don't know if they have a club that owns it. But as far as I can tell, that one is 100% anybody can use it whenever they want.
The Booster Club one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the New Underwood, they actually have members, they pay membership fees, they hold ropings that are members-only events.
What's Foundation Incorporated under exempts? 0060-828, Ms. Deb. This Foundation and.
M.
Oh,
Hill.
I'm sorry, you're right, okay.
It's
I didn't
M.
see the
Hill.
top of it.
There is a organization that bought M. Hill, and that is, it's not a city park. The city has developed the trails up there on M. Hill, but it's actually owned by some organization that bought it to protect it and make it available to the public. You're just looking at the buildings that are on the towers up on top, but
Right.
it's M. Hill.
Okay,
I have one. It would be 3166-7, on common ground. I thought that was like a place for people to go negotiate their problems after, but, I mean, it's under religious.
I think it's a church.
yeah, Common Ground is.
3166-7.
That bus code.
2
New
zeros.
exempts, religious.
It's a church that, this is new, they just bought it. It is a church, kind of south of us here, Robbinsdale area. What you're thinking of is, I think, Common Ground. This is uncommon ground.
On Common Ground. It's by
And what you're
Barron's.
talking about is north end of town, people that are fighting over custody of kids. That's it, yeah, this is a church.
Okay.
That's the one by Barron's Mortuary on,
That's where church should be, right next to the mortuary.
Well, it's right, Archway is right across the street.
And all you need there is an old folks home right next to that.
That's what the back part's used for.
That's Kirk and
Down
Somerset.
You go from one to the other on common ground, it's a good way to put it.
What they call the places over 55 down in Arizona are God's waiting room.
That's pretty good.
Well, Shannon, I'm curious about the Keystone project, and there's multiple numbers. But that's listed under new exempts, and I know in the past, we've had some
Yep.
questions about that property.
There's the main building up on top of the hill, the big massive building. And we argued with them initially because they were just flat not using it. Well, they did put minimal services in there and actually start using it, so it's been exempt for several years. Then they have lots around that main building, they're mining claims, but the lots around it, and they had some mobile homes up there. And what do you got there? That ain't it.
I'm like, that doesn't look very good. Not for a church.
They started using those mobile homes. In the past, they weren't. Well, they now have started using them. They've used more and more of the property. Initially, it was an argument over the use of the massive building, which $1 million building. They did start using it, and now they have actually started using more of it. What the Keystone project is it's a property that was built by the vet, Dr. Pankratz. He built this massive building and he just gave it to the Keystone Project. They created a corporation, and the Keystone Project has one guy that goes to foreign countries and does missionary work. He does educational sessions where he teaches people in Africa to be missionaries that stay in Africa. They bring those people to Keystone now, and he does his classes in Keystone, and then they go back to their country. They use that massive building for that kind of stuff. They also, in the last 2 years, have held church services up there for Keystone people. They've really tried to focus on the young people that are brought in from out of state to work in all the tourist traps. They've tried to do youth events for them. They use the motel. They are more and more filling that up with their foreign evangelistic people. And the trailer houses are housing for them for their classes. They've got more and more classes going on. Now, whether it's really a church or not, I don't know, but they meet everything in the law.
That's a church?
Yep.
And other things.
It's a religious organization.
Well, it's got a cross on it.
That's what their lawyer said when we were in Pier. But at that time, they weren't using it. Now they are actually using it, and they do hold church services there.
So he builds this huge thing, and then he calls it a church.
Pankratz built it. It was going to be his house. And he had different ideas for it, and his ideas changed all the time. And then he gave it to the Keystone Project, which was a very small, pretty much around one man missionary organization. And they have no money, no funding. They can barely keep the maintenance going on this building. I think Pankratz still gives them money for it.
With the utilities and all this stuff going on. I thought this had some water issues or some kind of issues with their septics or something up there. Wasn't this the property?
I think that's a different
Is it?
facility. I
Is
think
it?
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I could tell stories about it. But they are using it. They hold those evangelistic meetings in here. They do a couple times, 2-3 times a year, and they have been doing church services there.
So George, you know anything about this? Heard anything from Keystone?
I know of Pankratz, but I don't know anything about this deal, no.
I think, didn't it have a bunch of taxidermy animals in it? Still do?
Not anymore, because we made a big deal about that at the hearing in Pier, about how it was storage for his taxidermy. They've got all those out of there, and they're doing those classes, and they're very small church services, but I don't know where his taxidermy went, but that was part of the argument we made in Pier, is not only are you not having church services, but you're storing his taxidermy in it.
It included a giraffe.
Yep, a giraffe, and giraffe was a big one. There were several animals.
It's probably
But this
stood
had
out.
enough room to store that giraffe. Suppose there ain't very many places you can store a stuffed giraffe.
It's crazy, build that big building and not use it.
Yeah, and the reason that they don't is they aren't big enough. They acquired this by gift and are not big enough to fully utilize it. They have dreams of someday doing all kinds of stuff. We'll see if it ever happens. But
You know which portion is limited to 12.4% exempt?
that's probably the motel. Let's pull it up and find out. Okay, so part of what Pancratz gave them is a modern, ordinary Super 8 type of motel. And they rent it out for tourists through the year, through the summer. It's closed in the winter. But they provided me information this year that says that they have so many rooms that are dedicated to those foreign people that come for the evangelistic meetings. And it amounts to about 12% of their revenue, either revenue or room rent, whatever. But they told me how many days they had, how many rooms were rented to those people, and how many to tourists. They gave me a rent roll, essentially. In the past, they weren't using it for this. Those people were staying up in that lodge. Well, they actually let them stay in the motel this last year. And their plan is to continue that. But they will also rent out to tourists whatever rooms they don't use for their purpose. So it'll be partial exempt.
And those people are working for them?
They bring people from mostly Africa, but some other countries. They bring them here and they do a week or 2 week evangelistic meeting, which teaches them to be evangelists, to go back to Africa then and work in their home country. You don't look at me like that. It meets the law. I'm just stating the facts.
That's the story and you stick it.
That's what he was told.
You want to deny it? I've been to Pier with them before. We can do it again. But I think it meets the definition of the law because the law is really very broad. It
So
says
if-
religious purposes.
So if people have a service for people that come over here from other countries, we can call it religious purposes.
The law says used exclusively for religious purposes, and that's all it says, religious purposes.
But it also says exclusively.
But yeah, but then we had that Supreme Court case that said it can be partially.
But this, is this partial
Well, the
exempt?
motel happens to be partial.
Okay. And
The lodge, that massive building up there, they don't do anything else with it.
So what's the percentage on this one, Ms. Deb?
12% exempt.
Okay.
Didn't I hear that they were looking for local recruits to send away as well?
To Africa?
Yeah. They
I'd like
might
to-
be.
I'd like to go there once for a
The-
missions trip.
The
actually.
principal of the Keystone Project does travel to foreign countries. They're trying to bring those people here and do it. And that's their plan. They got big dreams.
That's on my
Looking for
bucket list.
young, vivacious local recruits
I'm gonna go to a mission,
to train and head off.
on a mission.
Yeah, they could be.
So that's on my bucket list.
I have one more here, which
Not
is
that
the
one, but-
John Witherspoon College, which is 100% exempt. It sounds goofy, but I suppose, is it a church? I mean,
Is it a religious exemption?
school, religious school? I can tell you the
It-
number,
It shouldn't be,
47065.
it shouldn't be religious exemption.
Yeah.
But it's exempt as a school because it is a college. It is a private college that is a religious college. They bought a church in Rapid here. It used to be a church. They're using it as a college now. I think they do hold church services in it, but it is a college where you can take college classes. The John Witherspoon College has their main college somewhere in the middle of the country, at Indiana or something like that. They bought this and are holding college classes there. It should be exempt as a school. They think they're exempt because it's a religious school. It doesn't matter whether it's a religious school or not, it's a school, it should be exempt.
I think it's a house and should be taxed.
It's a college.
Yeah, right.
I got a college.
The same applies to Wheaton College, and this is the Wheaton out at Isiga.
College.
But there's no college building on that Wheaton College property. That is a chunk of land that Wheaton College sends students every summer, and they do something there. I think it's geology studies or something, but there's no classroom building on that Wheaton property. They use it for some outdoor studies every summer.
Economic Development Foundation.
But this is the Isiga.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
They sit around, George, and sing Kumbaya. That's what they do every summer.
That makes them a church.
What's the definition of benevolent versus charitable?
Okay, I read the charitable. Benevolent says almost the same thing, but I think the legislature had an intention for organizations. Property owned by a benevolent organization used exclusively for benevolent purposes is exempt. A benevolent organization is any lodge, patriotic organization, memorial association, educational association, cemetery association, or similar. A benevolent organization must be nonprofit, 501c3. However, if any such property consists of improved or unimproved property located within a municipality not occupied or directly used in carrying out the primary objective of the benevolent organization, such property shall be taxed. However, if any such property consists of ag land, for the purpose of this section, an educational association is a group of accredited elementary, secondary, post-secondary. For purpose of this section, a benevolent organization also includes a congressionally chartered veterans organization, which is nonprofit. For purposes of this section, benevolent purpose means any activity that serves the poor, distressed, or underprivileged, promotes the physical or mental welfare of youth or disadvantaged individuals, or relieves a government burden. The wording is pretty much the same thing as a charity, except there are those references to patriotic association lodges. I think the intention of benevolent is Elks Lodge, Moose Lodge, VFW, those kinds of organizations.
I know it's splitting hairs, but like the retired listed association, that probably should be benevolent rather than charitable, wouldn't you agree? And Rapid City BPO, BPOE, shouldn't they be benevolent? It is splitting hairs.
Yeah, you're right. It's exempt either way, but yeah, it could be. But like the Elks Lodge, well, they are a charity. But the benevolent organization says the same thing about serving the poor and all that.
How did Rushmore Post 1273 VFW get over from partially exempt to 100% exempt? Because they're not 100% exempt. I think we went through that before, didn't we? And they were partially exempt because they have, you can go in there and drink, you can go in there and eat. They have breakfast once a month. You can go in there and eat every meal.
Okay, which one is that?
VFW.
Is that downtown one?
You're talking about 1273? The post, okay.
I don't know. A couple of years ago, I went through all of those and went down and talked to everybody. And that one's gone through some changes. I don't know. I can go back down and talk to him again.
Yeah, you better because, well, I would suggest that you do because they do things for the public. I mean, I always thought that to be 100%, you had to be just your membership get in and that's fine. But this is
No, to
wide
be exempt, it's just the opposite. To be exempt, you have to you can have things for the public, but when you have members only, then that's a private club.
Well,
Well, but then, oh, okay, they're different because they're members only thing, all their money goes to a charitable event. If they're the issue with those, the same thing with an Elks Lodge, is, they're running a business that's making money.
yeah, and they're no different than post 22, which I see is partially exempt, or the Elks, which is partially exempt. They all should be in the same category.
Or the Retired Enlisted Association, they should be,
And I have no problem but partially exempting them, but,
I will go look at it. Do you want me to do that, this afternoon and deal with that one on the 20th?
I would like to see that.
I'd like to know what the partial is. Is it 10, 80, 20, or 50, 50, or what is the partial exempt?
We can look each one of them up and tell you.
Appreciate it, yeah.
What one do you look?
Well, like under charitable, except for behavior management, the Rapid City BPOE, and there's 4 of those, Retired Enlisted Association, and American Legion Post 22, Fraternal Order of the Eagles, Masonic Building, what percentage of those? They're parcels, right?
Where you at, George?
No, on the partial exempts, there's on the
Okay,
last
start with
page.
one.
Thank you.
What one first?
Well, on benevolent, all 3 of those, what,
Okay, American Legion?
post 22, it's partial, is it
Okay.
50/50 or?
52191.
I guess pretty much all those on that page, except for behavior management, I guess I wouldn't. And I wonder why are they partial?
The exemption.
Some weird one I saw.
98% exempt. 98, okay.
22?
Post 22 is 98%.
But that's 1273 down the street here. I don't know where post 22 is.
That is across from,
St.
what
Patrick's.
used to be Bacon, yeah, St. Pat.
American Legion on it, okay, all right. And they're 98%?
Okay, pull up 62722.
I play bingo there.
The Eagles Club, what percent exempt? 25%.
Okay,
Masonic Lodge?
yeah.
Why is the
Masonic
Eagles?
Building, it just says Masonic Building.
Why is the Eagles any different than the Moose or the other ones?
They do different things. Some of them are more active than others. Some of them rent out the building for activities, others don't. They do different things.
Okay.
The Masonic Lodge, 70%. 70% on the land, 100% on the building. They must rent out parking.
So, the reason for that is because you have to be a Masonic member to get in there,
Yep.
do any activity. So they're 100%, understand
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, they don't they don't have a bar restaurant going on. And they don't rent it out, as far as we know, for wedding receptions or stuff like that.
Everything, all right. So their membership goes for some benefit to somebody,
Yeah.
theoretically.
And the Masonic Lodge is, what is that? The Shriners Hospital is where their money goes.
Trying to take over the world.
So what is under 100% exempt? 0015287, Cancu Luda Omni Incorporated.
Oh, that's a fun one. Okay,
Well, wait, we haven't finished the partial exempts. What about, how much is the BPOE and enlisted club?
Where are you at?
I'm still on the partial exempts.
51735. BPOE is the Elks Lodge. And I think that is, yeah, that's a country club out there, 19%.
Is that the golf course or the whole works?
The first one looks like the golf, well, the first one would be tied into the golf course.
Pro shop.
I think it all is,
Main one?
yeah.
It's
It
probably
is.
all one location there, all four of those are one location?
Yes,
Okay.
What'd you say, 19%?
19%.
And the listed club is,
37824. $75.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
So to get all those figures, you went out and talked to them and decided, and found out what they do, who they do it with.
Yep, and it was several years ago that I did that. I don't do it every year.
I doubt
It
it's
was several
changed
years
much.
ago, and I know their organization changes as they get different management.
But is that based on how much money then, or how the activity, the usage?
I try to do it one of two ways. Number of days that it's being used, or part of the building that's being used, if I can identify that. Try to do something as simple as I can to get a percentage. If you've got this part of the building and they're only using, the public can only use this part, then I'll figure that percentage. Sometimes it's a combination of both. 100% of the building, but 20% of it is available to the public for half of the year. I try to do something to come up with a percentage. That Cancun-Lutna thing,
Yeah,
that is what used to be an old farmstead east of Box Elder. It is like 10 or 20 acres with the old house built in the 50s and the outbuildings and like 20 acres of land. It was bought by this organization, which I think has its roots on the East Coast. They own that property for the whole purpose of putting an Indian medicine man in there, and anybody, I suppose, can come use his services. They do Indian religious stuff there during the year. I don't know if they have powwows, but they do Indian events on that property a couple of times a year, and they got a medicine man that lives in the house and does what medicine men do. It's a religious organization. I haven't really fought with them. There's one woman here locally. I think the organization is outside of the state, but there's one woman here locally that is a contact person. And I have hounded her every year for the last several years to make sure it's actually being used. And it appears that it is. If ever it appears like there's no Indian medicine man in that house and somebody's just renting it, then the exemption goes away.
so do you ever check to see if there's any activities there?
We've been out there multiple times. I've been there. I drove out there one time, didn't get him to answer the door, but as I walked up the stairway, the bathroom window is here and he's splashing around in the bathtub. So I know he's there. But then I've had appraisers that have been out there and they haven't met him, but they said, yeah, obviously somebody's there. And this woman says, yes, we have a medicine man there. And she gives us the dates that they have done something. We've missed them. I'd like to go out and at least drive by and see them doing something, but we never have advance notice of when it is. She just told us that, okay, on these dates we did whatever.
I guess I would see proof if people are saying one person lives there and then they'd have activities, but.
I haven't found, I look for things on that property, I look for things like swing set, kids' toys, a dog chained up, something like that would make it look like, hey, this is being used for something else. But the time I was there, no, it was some old guy that was living there.
They
And
have any sweat lodges, anything there?
yeah, they're off behind the building, there was the framework of them.
Okay,
Oh.
then that's usually a sign of religious for
There,
Native
there's
people,
something,
sweat
yeah.
lodges.
I don't
Okay.
know how, I doubt it gets used very much, but I don't see that it's being used for any other purpose. Maybe they only had one event that lasted an afternoon, and then the Indian that lives there.
Native.
But I haven't seen that it's being used for anything else, so. No car parked in the garage, no chicken coop, anything like that would tip me off that, I gotta think that at some point, this organization is gonna give up and say, oh, well, we tried, it didn't work, and, they're gonna stop doing all this, but looks like they still are.
But if they have sweat lodges, I'll tell you right now, that's the church basically for natives, so.
That's what they say they're doing is, I don't remember what she said they were doing something.
Sweats and stuff.
Something religious, Indian religious stuff.
Okay.
That's been a fun one, one of the ones I frequently check.
You go there frequently, I mean, say that,
I've been there a couple times, I've missed everything going on there, though.
okay. Just looking for clarification.
Maybe I ought to try Sunday mornings at 9:30, but I've missed it.
Stop it.
The word incubator is actually defined in state law.
Yes, and we have only one property that qualifies for that. It's a building on the School of Mines campus.
I know where it is, but it's actually defined in state law.
There's a state law that's specifically for a business incubator.
I'll be damned.
And I talked to them, and they are talking about building another one. They're not sure who's gonna build it, the School of Mines maybe, and they're not sure they're even gonna build another one, but there's talk about, this thing has been so good, maybe we need to build another one.
So when they come to us for money, we can say we already give them a tax break. Is that, can we, in kind?
We have that, George, and Rapid City Economic Development Foundation, some other stuff for economic development, by the way. So it's not just that, so we do give them tax breaks.
The economic development gets a different kind of exemption. They can hold up to a certain amount of property that they give or sell at a discount to businesses. There's a limit on what they can hold. They can't have an unlimited amount of property.
What is that limit, do you know by chance?
100,000.
Oh,
So what typically happens is the city wants to promote economic development. So the city gives them $100,000 worth of property, and then they try to find some business to put on it. And when they get that done, then the city gives them more property. That's how they make it happen to where they can get past that $100,000 limit. As long as the city owns the property, it's exempt from taxes anyways. Some economic development organizations own more than $100,000 worth of property, and they pay taxes on it. But then they gotta get the money for the taxes from somewhere, so.
So, I guess maybe I was always mistaken. Black Hill Surgery Center and those places are not exempt, even though they're health care facilities?
Depending on what one you're talking about, the hospital is involved in some of those. But there are private hospitals out there.
Black Hill Surgery Center,
And
One
I-
Day Surgery Center.
I'm not sure exactly which one's which, but one of those is a private hospital and,
Owned by doctors.
yep, and they only take people that have insurance.
Insurance, yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't got insurance,
Don't
they're
check
not
that.
near as friendly to you.
Anyway, that makes them good.
They're not a nonprofit, absolutely not a nonprofit. They are profit motivated. The hospital is a nonprofit and will take anybody, whether you got insurance or money, you will get health care. I talked to, this is interesting, I talked to the head lawyer for the hospital, Rapid City Regional, and she's a really nice lady. Talking to her about those surgery centers, and I asked her, is the hospital obviously competing, how does it deal with that? She said they absolutely hate those things for this reason. The hospital will take anybody, whether you got money or not. They will take you. Any hospital makes money off of major surgeries. Nobody makes money off of sniffles. and colds and things like that. Those surgery centers, they are specifically looking for the major surgeries where the money is. And they will not take you if you got a sniffle or a cold. They just don't do that stuff because there's no money in it. And they only take people with insurance. So the hospital here has got a customer base of this area, and the surgery center has now just taken the most profitable business away from them. And they're left with the sniffles and the people with no insurance.
Now they only make, what, $2 million a year?
Yeah. Yeah, you can certainly argue that they're not so benevolent, but they still take anybody.
But they still make money off us for sniffles or,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
pretty good amount if they have to, if it's.
But what happens when the surgery center takes those major surgeries away is then it spreads that cost out, then the people with the sniffles have to pay more because the hospital has to make money.
Yeah, I've been there doing that, not with sniffles, but a finger, but.
And there's one or two of those private hospitals that regional actually has an interest in. There's a cooperative agreement with at least one.
Yep.
And I wonder about the heart doctors, if they have something there too, but, and in fact, the hospital itself is, a part of it is taxable because they rent space to doctors in the hospital, but it is a very small percentage.
And so if they own part of a region, or a hospital, a clinic, that part is exempt, but the other part is taxed.
I think so. We'd have to go look at that property, and I'm not sure which one it is.
I have no idea.
Just because Rapid City Regional owns part of it doesn't mean that that's part of their charitable business. They could own a mini mart somewhere. I just know I was talking to either the hospital or a surgery center, and Rapid City Regional was actually some cooperative agreement in it.
So all the urgent cares around town, if they're owned by Rapid City Regional, they're probably tax exempt.
That's right.
Otherwise, if they're owned by doctors, they're not tax exempt.
That's right. And
Some of them.
urgent cares have become very popular. They've built several. Rapid City Regional, I think, built several trying to compete with the doctors.
Okay.
Okay, Shannon, do you have a particular motion that we would apply? And I have the question of, are there specific properties that commission members wish Shannon to follow up on? And should they be excluded from the motion?
Yeah. If you want to do that, you need to specify those. If you want to do that, fine. At the very least, that's something I can look at for next year. But if you want me to look at it and come back to you, then you need to pull them off this time.
You want VFW this year? I think he said VFW was one.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the 100% exempts with the exception of the 1273 VFW, and I'm looking for the number and I can't find it right offhand. 7340. Yep. With that exception.
Second.
And we can take a look at it later on whenever Shannon comes back.
And I will go out today if I can.
I think it's only fair, frankly, to the others
3-7.
to have them looked at.
And then next year, I'll just make it a project and go to all of them and just review all of them next year. Because it has been probably 5 years since I've done that.
Okay, so the motion is just for the 100% exempts?
Yes,
And with that exception.
yes.
Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any other motions?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the new exempts in 2015.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 2015 new exempts. Any discussion on that motion?
Aren't they 2016?
2016.
Yeah, but the spreadsheet says 15.
Yeah, it does.
So it's your fault.
Sorry about that.
Did just put in parentheses 2016, Shannon's fault.
Yeah.
Something.
Good man.
Okay, are we square? All right. Any
Or
further
lashes.
discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I will make a motion to accept and approve the partial exempts for 2016 with the caveat that at least the benevolent and charitable ones will be looked at by Equalization Department for next year's tax
Second.
equalization.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
And I would add on, put a percentage there for us next year.
That's fine with me, absolutely.
Did you get that?
Excuse me, George. Amendment?
Yeah, please, yes. I do.
Yeah, we will.
Okay. We're amending the motion to add,
It doesn't matter whether it's in your motion or not, we'll do it anyways.
okay, all right.
There you go.
Okay. So Karen, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we have a motion and a second and a kind of a sidebar amendment. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, you did the omitted property, so now, the 20th, whatever day that is, we will have appeals. And as happens every year, we are going to present you a list of, two lists. One of properties that have appealed that our office has a recommendation to change. And then another list where our office has a recommendation, no change. And none of those property owners wanted to appear here. So we present them to you on a list. The property owners that wish to appear before the commission, whether we have a recommendation to change or not, they'll have appointments and they'll show up. We're not sure how many we've got yet. We will probably do half of the 20th and all of the 21st.
When do we get those papers?
20th at 8 o'clock.
20th.
Any motion to adjourn to 8 o'clock on the 20th?
Just recess. Don't
We
recess.
have to recess.
Yep.
And we won't see those lists until,
No, because we don't have them done yet. We're still talking to people.
We'll try to make sure that, well, you will have them on Tuesday.
You'll get them next Monday afternoon. You can pick them up Tuesday when you come for commission meeting.
But, and our board meeting is Wednesday then.
Yes. I'll
So
have
you'll get 'em-
Tuesday night to review them.
So you'll get them Tuesday.
okay.
Thank
But
you.
we're still talking to people. We don't know yet who's got appointments and who's coming or who's not coming. We don't know that yet.
Okay, we had a motion to recess until the 20th. Did we get a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. We are in recess.
See you next week.